There's no place like the Cube. Family, it's your favorite queer radio personality, Aina Deshawn, and it's almost Pride. Yeah, you heard me. It's almost Pride, and yes, this isn't the normal intro, so tap back in and don't fast forward this part. I want to talk for a quick second. Can I share something? I want to get to know y'all better. Podcasting can really be such a one-way medium unless you are being incredibly intentional for it not to be. This is me being incredibly intentional. I've heard positive things from podcasters whose listeners leave them voicemails, and I want to try it out. Let me tell you what I have in mind, all right? Nearly everywhere I go, folks say, family, back to me, and it warms my heart so much. In leading up to Pride, tell us why you love being family. Tell us why you love being queer or an ally or a comrade to the LGBTQ community. I want to share them during Pride and remind us why we are magical humans who are beautifully and wonderfully made. The script's going to go something like, I'm family and I love us because you fill in the blank. Because we're beautiful and fierce, because all are welcome here, because we refuse to go back in the closet. You see what I'm saying? You see where I'm going with this? So you already know, a link to leave us a voicemail is in the show notes. I really, really hope to hear from you. You, the one listening right now. I want to hear from you. Now, if you're driving, just make a mental note, okay? That's the safe thing to do. If you're at your computer, go ahead and make a calendar reminder so you don't forget. If you're doing your dishes, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Just don't forget, okay? I really, really want to hear from you. Now, let's take a quick break for our sponsors we love so much.
Are you lost in your podcast journey? If so, you found the right podcast. My name is DJ Tracy Treese, and I'm a podcast producer. In partnership with The Cube, I'm bringing you the Lost and Found for podcasters. I've worked behind the scenes on some of your favorite podcasts, and I'll be bringing you some great conversations with podcast industry experts to help you find your way through your podcast journey. There's so much information out there, and the industry is rapidly changing. No need to feel lost. You found the right podcast. Subscribe to the Lost and Found for podcasters now. Everywhere that you listen to podcasts, if you prefer your podcast in video, click the link in the description to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube.
Welcome back. And now for the news. Our top story is Brittney Griner. She played in her first home regular season game yesterday. In politics, what city has the most LGBTQ representation on its city council? Do you know? Nope, not them. That's right, it's here in Chicago. I was there to witness them being sworn in, and I want to share my experience with you. And yes, I have more Florida anti-trans legislation to share, and its conspirator states have been busy too. In culture, a long-standing Texas bar is denied insurance because they're seen as too big of a risk, given the new anti-drag and anti-trans legislation in Texas. In entertainment, Hayley Kiyoko stands up for queer rights during her show against the warning given by an undercover Nashville police officer. And for my Anna's Got a Word, I talk about how Thursday we'll be mourning the 3rd anniversary of George Floyd's murder. Lots to dig into today, family. Let's go.
You are now tuned in to higher frequencies. We do this frequently. Turn your radio station to E3 for that decency. Listen to great music and the latest movement. Safe listening for anyone that's tuned in. Who you waking up to? Aina Deshawn, Q Crew and friends. It's that real talk. Online radio with the spins. You caught up in traffic, frustrated. Just check in with E3 to shift your vibrations and get elevated. That's queer radio done right. Choose to be yourself. That's the only way to live life, and that's how it's done here. Just know y'all tuned in to the greatest. Ain't no competition. We ain't worried about the other stations. Check.
The day finally came. BG back on the Phoenix Mercury court for a regular season home game. Now, this hadn't happened in 585 days. The WNBA intro of BG had me all in my feelings. It was so well done. And the roar of the crowd was it was next level up in there. I can feel the energy through my computer because I'm over here watching, YouTube TV. Then it was time for tip-off. BG wins it. I don't even think Elizabeth jumped. BG wins it. They pass it to her, and she hits the shot. She hits the first shot of the game, gets fouled, and hits the free throw. I mean, it's just simply a poetic moment. It's poetic. By the end of the game, she racked up 27 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 blocks. Y'all, she had a double-double in her first home regular season game in 585 days. Wow. She walked off the court into an embrace by her wife, Sherelle, that made my big queer heart smile. I mean, they on national TV just kissing and hugging and everything. I loved it. Now, let's be clear, my re-engineered Chicago Sky team did take the win, though. Okay, But that's not what the story is about at all. Nope, it is not. It's about BG. It's about BG being back. Welcome back, BG. In politics, last week I had the opportunity to attend the inauguration of Chicago's elected city officials. The new mayor, Brandon Johnson, our treasurer, city clerk, and our 50 alders who represent our 77 neighborhoods, okay? Our alders are who make up our city council. And because of the great reporting by Jake at Block Club Chicago, we know that our Chicago City Council is the gayest city council in the country. I mean, we are queerer than Palm Springs. And that right there is saying a whole lot, okay? I had an opportunity to ask my friend and alderwoman Maria Haddon of our 49th Ward how we got so queer. Hear what she had to say.
I think one of the factors here, like in Chicago and in Illinois, why we're seeing more queer representation is because we're seeing more movement candidates become elected officials. When you've got folks in movement who are fighting on issues, right? And not everybody's coming from fights on queer issues, but we're intersectional people, right? So you're seeing our first Filipina woman who's also queer in city council, right? We've got more queer Latina representation. We've got our first openly gay Black man in city council. And it's not an accident, right? These are folks, we're coming from movement spaces. We've been organizing in our communities. We're building relationships, and we're coming with our people to the table. And that's why we're winning. And I think that's how we see more representation here. And I think that's how we'll see more representation in other communities.
I couldn't have said it better, so I won't. But that is a word and reminds us that this isn't new. This is how so many of our elected officials we honor today actually started. John Lewis comes to mind, for example. I love this for us here in Chicago and for our Midwest siblings who need to escape for a weekend or forever from surrounding red states. I will also say about my experience, right? I got to witness our first Black woman and first lesbian mayor who did not win re-election, didn't even make it to the runoff, okay? We saw Lori Lightfoot graciously pass the power to our new mayor, Brandon Johnson. It's a pretty special and historic moment. We had the opportunity to see politics in action. And let me tell y'all something, for real. This inauguration was Black church wrapped up as a political event. I mean, there was African drumming. The one and only Karen Clark Sheard. Okay, she sang 2 songs. Apostolics, I'm just gonna say world-renowned choir and orchestra. And this was the energy. Y'all gotta hear this. This was the energy. pretty special moment to see our second Black mayor sworn in and our first Black First Lady. Yeah, because our first Black mayor, Harold Washington, never had a wife. So family, this is queer news because Brandon Johnson, his politics is one of inclusivity. So we'll be watching to see what he does over the next 4 years. That's for sure. I mean, he does have the gayest city council. And just a little bit more political news. As we've been talking about Florida all month, DeSantis has done it again. This time, signing more anti-trans legislation into law. He is absolutely setting himself up to run for president in a battle for who can hate the queers the most. I mean, that's exactly what it feels like. This time, he signed into law new restrictions on gender-affirming care for minors, more about banning drag shows, also telling folks which bathrooms they can use, and more mandates for educators on which pronouns can be used in school. Because of all of this anti-LGBTQ political climate in Florida, Tampa Pride actually canceled their Pride on the River event just this past week. Pride is open to people of all ages. And with these laws, Pride activities could be shut down. They could be sanctioned. They could be fined or worse. This is what's happening. Now, DeSantis's co-conspirators in Texas and Nebraska, they have been busy too. The Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is actively investigating 2 hospitals. Yep, not one, but 2 hospitals for allegedly providing gender-affirming care. According to Paxton and Texas, this is considered child abuse now. Then, in Nebraska, their legislature passed a ban on gender-affirming care for people under 19. So, I can serve this country at 18, but can decide if I want to transition. Okay, yeah, make it make sense, family. Just make it make sense. Yep, I think it's time for us to take a quick break. Every time I finish with the political section, I be needing a break. I don't know about you, but let's hear from a couple of our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. Family, this is your favorite queer radio personality, Aina Deshawn here. And if you're listening to this sponsor spot, that means it works. That means these ads can work. And we've got some amazing Pride specials coming up for all of our episodes in June. I want you to check out the link in the show notes. We got $15 shout outs on the podcast. We'll give you a shout out on the podcast and on Instagram. And if you want to get one step further, we can do Instagram, TikTok, and the podcast. Let's go. Support queer media and buy a Pride ad today.
What has 144 players, 12 teams, and 1 league that you should tap into? If you guessed the WNBA, you already know. If you didn't, we'll get you up to speed real quick. My name is Money, and this is Rebound Revolution, bringing you the revolutionary on and off the court happenings in the W. Join me and a special guest each week as we watch them work. Listen to Rebound Revolution wherever you get your podcast.
And we're back, yeah. Now, family, you got to tell me, did that last promo get you hyped? I mean, we deserve a WNBA podcast for us. Rebound Revolution is it. You need this in your life. I included a link in the show notes so you can subscribe, all right? If you love basketball or you don't. If you love women. I mean, I don't think there's anybody listening to this podcast that don't love women. If you're listening to this podcast and you don't love women, you got to tell me why you're listening to this podcast. But I digress. You get the point. Go subscribe to this podcast. I do really think you'll love it. So proud that my company, The Cube, that we are contributors to this podcast. It's dope. Go subscribe. Go listen to our trailer. First episode drops on Thursday. And now for even more culture and entertainment news, let's talk about this bar in Houston, Texas, called Pearl Bar Houston. Founded by Julie Mabry in 2013, she started it because she recognized there was a need for a safe and welcoming space that's centered to Houston lesbians and the queer community. Pretty simple stuff here, people. Having a bar also for 10 years is quite an accomplishment, okay? And yet, it was recently reported by NBC News Out that she was denied insurance because her lesbian bar was too big of a risk, given the new laws in place in Texas. Like, quite literally, the underwriter wrote, "We won't write the risk." Yeah, after 10 years in business, insurance policies are not automatically renewed. The underwriter wrote, "We won't write the risk." You can't have a bar without insurance. I can't hold a one-time event for 100 people without insurance. The owner, Julie, she talks about how you have to be 21 to enter the bar, that kids are not allowed to come watch the drag shows. So technically, she is following the law, but yet here she is fighting for her livelihood, for her bar. There are only a couple dozen lesbian bars left in the country. This is just one of two in the big state of Texas. And so, this is exactly what all this anti-LGBTQ legislation is meant to do: erase us and invoke so much fear in others that even if they are following these new hateful laws, you still can't get insurance coverage. God help us. Like, that's the whole prayer. God help us. So, last week, my word was fight. And this entertainment story embodies all of that, okay? All of it. Hayley Kiyoko, an out queer singer, posted on IG that before her show in Nashville, an undercover cop told her that she shouldn't have drag queens join her on stage, because of all this new anti-LGBTQ, anti-trans, anti-drag show legislation. Y'all, it's wild to me that we're living in these times. But it upset her so much that she shared the experience with her fans on IG. She recorded a video. She got really emotional. And what she did was she took those tears and actually turned them into a whole lot of courage. She had already invited a couple of drag queens from the Nashville community to join her on stage that night. And when they arrived just 10 minutes before the show, she shared with them her legal concerns and what happened, but they showed no fear, okay? They showed no fear and wanted to go on with the show. Hayley posted that video too, and you can hear all the big cheers from the crowd. In her video, she said, "I find pride in making sure my concerts are safe places for all. How can I do that if we aren't allowed to be ourselves, especially at a predominantly queer concert? We deserve to have a safe space to be ourselves while we navigate the evil that is threatening our own existence." Hayley, we could not agree more. It's that time, family. It's that time of the pod where we end with a word of the day. Today's word is light, and it's dedicated to the family of George Floyd. His family, the country, some parts of the world, I'm sure, will be mourning the 3rd anniversary of his murder this week, Thursday. And the word that came to mind for me was light. 3 years ago, many of us watched George Floyd lose his life. But because of his family and their courage, some would say resilience, to not give up, they are giving light back to the neighborhood where George was murdered. They've actually started a fund that they launched earlier this year to invest in the businesses that are in that hood. It's called the Ward 8 Community Benevolence Fund. The family donated $500,000 to start it and are on the board alongside other community members. They have created a new light for people who need it, who need more of it. And so, family, I challenge you to bring light in places that need it. Sometimes our darkest moments are where the brightest lights can be found. Now, me and you may not have $500,000 right now, but I believe in time, talent, and treasure. Each are so valuable. So find out where you can shine a bright light, Till next week, family. Peace. If you enjoyed what you hear, rate and review us inside your favorite podcasting app. This podcast is a production of E3 Radio, your #1 queer radio station playing queer music and reporting on queer news in high rotation.